I was, just on eBay looking for things to put on the back of our new set here. And I was like, I wanted something that's unique. Obviously, we have artwork, we have books, added some VHSs, but I was like, I need something that like really stands out, and eBay's like just a black hole. You can just go on forever and ever. And then I found something that I was like, this is unique, it's niche, and I think it really would make the studio pop. It's the Dinner with Andre action figures, and I thought
No, you did
I
not.
thought I'd put a bid on those.
Oh my
Because the great
gosh.
thing about those action figures is you can actually play out the conversation. I think that's the best part, right? It's Waiting for Guffman coming up next on Least Important Things.
Wait, that was the cold. That was the cold open. That was cold.
Got Ron and Sheila on board again.
Midnight at the Oasis.
Newcomer Alan Pearl.
I have a very lazy eye, which these prescription glasses help.
Libby.
I've been working here at the DQ for about,
And of course, Lloyd and I, it's like rams butting heads.
Certainly, Corky has brought something to our little theatrical community. He's definitely different.
You know, he can just do everything there is to do, and there's only one other person in the world that can do that, and that's Barbara Streisand.
I have a little announcement to make. Mort Guffman is going to come from New York City and see our show. We have one shot at this. We've got one performance. With Mort Guffman coming to town, we need to hitch up our panties and run. Hooray for Mort Guffman!
Welcome to a podcast called Least Important Things, a show about movies, friendship, and finding meaning in the most important of the least important things. I'm your host, Luke Ferris. In today's episode, we are traveling to the Stool Capital of the world. That's Blaine, Missouri, to rewatch the 1997 mockumentary masterpiece, Waiting for Guffman. Joining me today is someone the friends of the show have been waiting to sit in the reserved podcast co-host seat for a long time. It's Mike Wynne. Welcome back to the show.
Oh, so good to be back. It was a long labor negotiation lockout period, but eventually our sides were able to come together. Our representation were able to come together, and I was able to secure a new deal to appear.
No extra podcasts. You do one more podcast, but you get an extra bump on the royalties, right?
Yeah, it was really important. Here's the problem. Here's what happened is, unfortunately, somebody leaked to me the details of Zach Hall's deal.
Oh, okay. I see.
Because I know my value. Okay.
Yes, you do.
Love and respect Zach, but I wanted to make sure that I was properly compensated too.
That's okay. You got to do for you. But we're glad to have you back. It's been too long. The fans, the listeners have been yearning for you. They've been sick of me. So we're glad to have you back. How you doing, buddy? How you feeling?
Doing good. Yeah, it's been a whirlwind. So like 5 weeks ago, Shannon and I had a baby boy, and he's been great. He's been great. It's been great.
He actually, just before we recorded, I didn't record it, but he did make a cameo. So yeah. He's already started to get into the podcast network here. When we do our Bluey rewatch series in a couple of years, we just got to get him prepped for that.
Right. Yeah. I'm looking forward to that, actually. I've been looking for an excuse to watch Bluey.
It's really good.
It's kind of sad if a 30-year-old man is watching Bluey without any children.
Yeah, the worst is like if I watch it with like my brother and my nephews, and then like the nephews leave and we're still watching it. It's like, okay, this is not, we don't have to be watching this, but it's just on.
Yeah.
It gets you in, it's good values. It's the accents. It's good. I can't wait for our deep dive.
I love it. So yeah, no, happy to be back.
And you picked this movie, which I think is really fitting, and we're gonna get into it. But I don't want to spoil our overall thoughts. But I had an absolute blast watching this movie for the first time. So I cannot wait to talk about it.
Yeah,
I laughed a lot.
to be honest, this movie was not at all on my radar. And frankly, this wouldn't really be a movie that's on Lit's radar.
Right.
If it weren't for, and we'll get into it, but yeah, this was an awesome film to watch. And it was like I'm surprised at this movie. Maybe it's not long enough for TV because I'm surprised it doesn't get shown.
It's crazy that this wasn't on TBS and TNT every weekend, but I think because it's so short.
Yeah.
But they had deleted scenes, so I don't know why they couldn't stuff, because a lot of times what happens when they have syndicated movies on TV, they want to stretch them out longer. So that's why a lot of times you'll get deleted scenes within the TV cut that aren't in the theatrical cut. Most famously, the original Halloween has deleted scenes in the TV version a lot of times, or originally when they started showing it on TV, because they want to extend it to add more commercials in. So I don't know what gives. I don't know what gives. I think a prejudice on this movie, I guess.
Yeah.
But we'll get into it. Before we dive into our conversation on Waiting for Guffman, whether it's first time listening or watching, or you're a friend of the show, thank you for being here. Please remember to subscribe wherever you listen to your podcast or on YouTube so you don't miss an episode dropping every Tuesday. You can also connect with the show at leastimportantthings.com. Email leastimportantthings@gmail.com. And then you can follow us on social media. Find those in the show notes below. We have a Patreon where you can become a free member to receive email alerts when new episodes are released, video updates, exclusive conversations, and additional information about the episode. We recently posted Zach Hall's recipe to see if something holds up. So go ahead, take that recipe and filter it on a movie like maybe Waiting for Guffman. And for the same price as a Dinner with Andre action figure, you can become a friend of the show and get exclusive content and a Least Important Things sticker. Supporting the show helps us cover costs of promotion and production tools and make more episodes like this one. Visit patreon.com/least important things. Most importantly, this is an independent podcast, and the best way you can help the show is by recommending it to somebody. So please, if you're waiting in the concession line during intermission during a local theater production, please recommend Least Important Things. As you know, every rewatch episode, we have a sponsor for the show, and I only have sponsors on these episodes if I truly believe in what they offer as an organization, service, or product. And this episode, of course, is sponsored by the Blaine Historical Society. If you're looking for the artifacts, stories, and the lore of Blaine, look no further than the Blaine Historical Society. Phil Burgess will entertain you with all the legendary stories of Blaine, from the town's founding to the stool boom to the alien abductions. At the Blaine Historical Society, you'll be so inspired that you'll want to stay in Blaine forever. The Blaine Historical Society. Thank you for sponsoring today's show. All right, Mike, we have the back of the VHS. Can you read the back of the VHS for Waiting for Guffman?
Yep. For the first time.
For the first time, of course.
Blaine, Missouri may be little, but that will not stop Corky St. Clair from dreaming big. He's determined to get back into the bright lights of Broadway, and he thinks he has the ticket. He's created Red, White, and Blaine, an ambitious musical celebrating the town's 150th anniversary. This is Spinal Tap's Christopher Guest plays Corky in the acclaimed comedy. Eugene Levy, Catherine O'Hara, Parker Posey, Fred Willard, and Bob Balaban co-star as stage-struck residents who pin their hopes of being discovered on Corky's hilariously hapless theater production, and on reports that big-time talent scout Mort Guffman will be in attendance.
Ooh, Mike Wynne nailed it. He's back. There's no rust. He was in that lockout, but he just came in, dropped 50 points. First game back.
Double nickel.
How it's done. That's how it's done, baby. This movie was directed by Christopher Guest, as mentioned, written by Christopher Guest and Eugene Levy, starring, as Mike said, Christopher Guest, Eugene Levy, Catherine O'Hara, Fred Willard, Parker Posey, and many more comedy legends. Facts that you can fact check. I'm not going to do the work for you. Waiting for Guffman was released in limited theaters on January 31st, 1997. It actually came out in 96. and in the Toronto Film Festival and another film festival, but very limited run in 96, but came out in theaters in 97. That weekend, in January of 97, not a lot going on in the theaters. You could have seen the special edition re-release of Star Wars: A New Hope. That would have been a fun night at the theaters. The budget was roughly $4 million, and it made about $2.9 million at the domestic box office, which, again, this is all part of the lore of this movie and how it's built in respect as a cult classic over time. It was filmed in Lockhart, Texas, just south of Austin, in roughly 30 days. It was a quick shoot. Levy and Guest developed a unique style where they would write a detailed 15 to 25 page beat sheet or outline, but no real dialogue was written for this movie. It was mainly improvised besides the actual musical numbers, which to me is so impressive.
Yeah. That's incredible. The fact that they just kind of knew this is where we're going to start, this is where we're going to end, and these are a couple points we got to hit in between. I mean, it's no wonder. I mean, you're going to get to the mountain of footage that they had to edit. But yeah, so it's not a surprise that became the truth.
In the scene where Corky, Christopher Guest, teaches the cast dance moves, Eugene Levy was barely visible in the back. This is because Levy was so just like losing it. He was laughing every time Guest started to do his dance moves. So they just decided to put him in the back. I just love that because that just reminds me of not what we're doing. Like, we're not making a movie, but I feel like if we made a movie together, one of us probably would lose it and not be able to get through a scene. So we'd have to put us in the back.
Without doubt.
It's like, it shows you that these were truly friends making this movie. This is a low budget indie movie comedy and friends just going for it and having a blast. Christopher Guest spent a year and a half editing the almost 60 hours of footage, as Mike said, with editor Andy Blumenthal to come up with the final cut of the film. This is why when people are always talking about, oh, they improv this, or, oh, on this TV show, they improved it, it's not necessarily true. A lot of times, and we'll talk about Parks and Rec and The Office, a lot of times what they would do, they would have extra cuts. So if they were on time, they would maybe add something. And that was in the digital age. Like, the reason why you didn't improv for movies on film is because film costs money. And it took extra time, costs money for the crew. So it's pretty unique. But on an indie film, you can do this. They actually shot this on 16 millimeter to actually have it feel like a true low budget documentary. But I think that served them because they weren't spending all this extra money on high production value of 35 millimeter film. But still, this is not digital film. They had to cut, edit, splice this together, which is really impressive. The music and lyrics, of course, for Red, White, and Blaine were written and composed by Christopher Guest, but also Michael McKean and Harry Shearer, who were the three stars of This Is Spinal Tap, which came out in '84. Would really put Christopher Guest on the scene. Parker Posey and Matt Kiesler also appeared in Scream 3 together. That's a fun one. We haven't talked about the Scream franchise, but it's one of our favorites as friends and fans. So those are the facts that you can fact check. I'm not going to do the work for you. All right, Mike, let's move on to OT's overall thoughts. What is your history with this movie? And just tell the listeners like why this came about, because we were texting and after intense negotiations, we were able to communicate. And it was like, okay, what movie do you want to watch? What do you want to talk about? And you picked this movie. Why did you pick this movie?
Yeah, so I'm not one that really gets okay. So my history with this movie is there is none. There is no history with this movie. It is not on my radar. To be quite honest, I didn't even know it existed until this year, when it showed up on Netflix or wherever it showed up recently. And we were going back and forth on what we should do on my my return, and
on your comeback tour.
Yeah, and I'm not one that really gets roped up into like celebrities passing away. I think part of that is my age, and so like the celebrities I'm like connected to or have like some emotional connection to are still quite young and not dying yet. But I would say the very first celebrity that I was like, when I heard that they died, was like, oh my gosh, like that sucks, like big time, was when Catherine O'Hara recently passed away.
Yeah.
And I adore Catherine O'Hara. She is one of my all-time favorite actresses, comedians. Yeah, everything she's in, she just absolutely kills. And this is no exception. And so when we were talking, I was like, this has kind of been on my mind recently of like, if I wanted to watch anything, I wanted to watch stuff she was in to just kind of remember her. And I hadn't seen this yet. So we agreed we would watch this. And I really didn't know anything about it other than that she kills in it.
And I think it was an emotional reaction to obviously losing someone, which felt like it was unexpected. Someone who was, I wouldn't even call it a comeback of their career, but someone who had gone to the next level of notoriety. Most people of our generation knew her from the Home Alone movies.
Yeah.
Schitt's Creek comes along, and all of a sudden everyone realizes how prolific her career's been and start going back into her other work. And a lot of people feel connected to the character she played in Schitt's Creek. And then she's done so many things since Schitt's Creek. I haven't watched The Studio yet. You started watching The Studio. You just finished, like, it. A lot of both critical and popular acclaim for her performance in that, and it just felt like we're going to get so much more Catherine O'Hara. And I think that's when it really stings, when an artist that you are looking forward to seeing what they do, feels like they get taken away from you. And it's not like she's in her 20s, but it just felt like she had this second era of her career, and she was getting all these opportunities that it wasn't an indie comedy movie. It wasn't a cameo here or there. Like, she was getting these big roles and doing great work. And so it is kind of frustrating from a consumeristic perspective, but also just heart-wrenching. And I talked about it in my Oscars episode. It's when you're in that, watching that segment of the Oscars and you see someone like her name comes up, it's surprisingly how emotional you can get.
Yeah. And so I've watched a ton of stuff that she's been in recently. Like, I haven't rewatched Schitt's Creek, but I watched Schitt's Creek. That is amazing. I watched another comedic hero of mine that died a long time ago, but John Candy's doc. I Like Me. I watched that, and she features a ton in it because they were incredible friends going all the way back to SCTV.
Right.
And I watched The Studio, which she just absolutely kills in. It's just so good. That show, the whole show is great. But one of the things that stands out to me about O'Hara that is maybe like personalizes it for me a little bit is she actually reminds me a lot, or she doesn't necessarily, but one of her characters reminds me a ton of my mother. And it's Kevin's mom in Home Alone. And my mom is like, there's no real, like, this isn't going to sound entirely flattering, but like, if you know my mom or have been around her a lot, like, I think you would kind of understand. My mom is the type of person that Kevin's mom is, in that on the one hand, you see like this incredible desperation and passion, and like we'll run through brick walls to like make sure her son is safe because something like it's a world injustice, like that she has to make this right. But at the same time, like, entirely plausible that she did this. Like, so like it's hard. I think when you watch that movie, you're like, how can a mother who's like so invested in protecting her son be so careless to let this happen? And I think that's part of the joke. But at the same time, like, growing up with a mom who like would often forget to pick me up from school, so I had to call my grandfather to like get me, because she was taking a nap on the couch. She wasn't delinquent as a mother, but it's just these are kind of like quirks about my mom. And so O'Hara's character in Home Alone was somebody who really reminded me of home. And I love my mom to death. And I always really connected with her character in that movie. And it was at first difficult to separate art from the artist, because Kevin's mom is not Catherine O'Hara.
Right.
But that was my introduction to Catherine O'Hara.
Right.
And from that moment, I kind of just saw her as like, oh, she's the woman that kind of reminds me of my mom, even if every one of her characters is very dynamic and different.
Yeah, I totally get that. I think my siblings would back me up. Joan Cusack's performance in School of Rock reminds me a lot of my mom, because she's very organized. She loves kids. She worked in the school system, but she's like would you kind of get her in her element? She's a music fan. She's a little bit of my siblings hate this, but she's a little bit of a hippie, not in the like hippie peace love sense, but and like she loves to dance. She loves music, but she's been running a household for a number of years and always takes care of everybody and is like very focused. But it's just also the mannerism. So I have an affinity for Joan Cusack, even though like her character in Grosse Pointe Blank, nothing like my mom, but that initial connection I had with her as a kid in School of Rock, I kind of want to follow her and support her that way. I totally get that. Totally makes sense. And I think Catherine O'Hara in that role in Home Alone, she is like a millennial mom. Like she's the mom character that we all feel connected to growing up with that movie. And then seeing her in all this work, if you go down the rabbit hole of her comedic lineage, SCTV, all those Canadian friends, I re-listened to their episode on Conan's podcast, which was all the way back pre-pandemic, just breaking down the friendships and the connections and how it was like this group in Toronto and Ontario in Canada just all kind of
it's one of the most incredible comedic casts ever assembled.
It's this troupe that went on to be the most dynamic comedic legends of their generation, and in kind of a unsung way. Like it just kind of came out of nowhere, and it's so fun to like be able to go back and see all of her work. And this movie was on my list for a while. I watched Best in Show, I think right when Schitt's Creek started to pick up momentum and my wife and I started watching it. We put on Best in Show and I was like, oh my gosh. And I already knew about Christopher Guest because of Spinal Tap, which I had seen as a teenager, but it kind of was like, okay, there's a lot more here.
Yeah.
There's a lot more of this type of comedy that you get a little bit in Schitt's Creek, but it opens up all this lineage of comedic legends that maybe aren't on TNT on a Saturday afternoon, or not maybe shown, or unless your parents had the VHS, you probably wouldn't have watched it. And I think that's what's fun about going back. And we don't really do this very often on this show, is like we don't like do a cold movie that we both have never seen unless it's part of a franchise. So it was fun to jump into Waiting for Guffman, and I was not disappointed. There was times where I don't laugh out loud a lot by myself. And I had to laugh out loud because it was the natural reaction to this.
I was struggling with that too, Luke, because I watched this movie while I was also trying to get my son to sleep on me. And so like I'm watching this.
That's movie. Tough. You're setting yourself up for failure.
Yeah. And he's kind of like on my shoulder or whatever. And then I was like start laughing, and I'm like muffling my laughter so that it doesn't wake my son. Yeah.
I was shocked. I knew this format went back to Christopher Guest. If you watch This Is Spinal Tap, it's the historic, it's not the start of the mockumentary, but it really changes what the mockumentary is. Like the term mockumentary started with This Is Spinal Tap, and Christopher Guest was a star of that. He takes this format a few years later and tackles it and uses it with Waiting for Guffman. But every modern mockumentary or self-aware TV comedy show, from The British Office to Community, owes its lineage to, of course, Spinal Tap, but it's Waiting for Guffman and Guest's work after this. Because if you watch this movie and you're a Parks and Rec fan, Office fan, Modern Family, and you watch this movie, you're going to be like, wait, did they just make a movie? Did they just rip off Parks and Rec? Oh no. Those shows are sourcing from Waiting for Guffman.
And I think Parks and Rec is the perfect parallel here, right? Because this movie, Waiting for Guffman, focuses on small town, like politics in a lot of ways.
Characters. Yeah. Small town politics and characters, which they're tied together. If you've ever been to your local city council meeting, these people exist.
Yes, 100%. And so, yeah, I texted you. I was like, this movie is the spiritual father to, or the spiritual mother to, Parks and Rec, which we know is created by people who helped create the U.S. office. And so, I mean, like, there's, yeah, but you're right. It all goes back to Spinal Tap and Waiting for Guffman, and this style that was kind of pioneered by Guest. Even though he didn't invent it, he really perfected it. And you watch these movies, and these movies are from the 80s and 90s, and they are familiar because it's what you're currently watching right now.
That's so true. It's pretty rare to take a comedy from the 80s and 90s and show it to someone who's not a comedy fan or has no history of this comedic lineage going back to SCTV and SNL, and for them to be like, oh yeah, this is just a long Parks and Rec episode.
Yeah, like how many times have you heard your parents say, oh, Blazing Saddles is like the funniest movie ever made, and like it is funny, or Young Frankenstein's the funniest movie ever made, and it's like, okay, yeah, those early Mel Brooks movies are hilarious, but there's several reasons why they don't hold up, and it's that our tastes in humor just change over time, and also filmmaking just changes over time. But Christopher Guest really did something evergreen without even trying to do it, because he did something that he had no idea that fast forwarding 30 years in the future was going to be more relevant than it was when he made
where every TV show is essentially using your comedic format.
Well, and
the jokes, all the jokes, all the beats, the comedic timing, all the jokes all come back to this.
And we had the TV successes of The Office and Parks and Rec and 30 Rock and some of these shows that were really successful in the early to mid 2000s, and then there was some fatigue, and networks went away from them, but none of the shows that they went to were successful. And they were like, oh, actually people really just love these multicam shows where we do we do interviews with the cast or whatever, and there's like self-awareness, and it's like, so it's kind of, it was incredible to watch, and knowing nothing about the movie to realize that, like, oh, this is where it came from.
Yeah, and we both love comedy podcasts and hearing comedians tell stories, and I feel like that's where I really knew this movie from, is reference, like Waiting for Guffman. Like it was a movie that was always referenced, almost a sacred text to all these more modern generation of comedians and writers that created Parks and Rec, created The Office, that are doing all this modern work. They always reference this movie, so it was really fun to like look at it and be like, oh no, it's not just them saying this like it's some niche comedy thing. It's the format, it's the formula that we all owe Lineage today. And I actually was a little mad after watching this, and I was like, why is this movie not bigger?
Yeah,
like,
why is it not
way
huge?
Bigger.
It should be
so
huge.
Crazy. I like feel like this movie should be talked about and watched and rewatched all the time.
I'm shocked that it went to Toronto Film Festival, which is a massive film festival.
Yeah.
And didn't get picked up by like a huge production company and like just thrown everywhere, because it's probably because I don't even know why. Like it's short. Yes, it's short. But I almost feel like that would be good for a movie theater.
Yeah, but we
get more
think about
screenings.
Think about the 90s. We are in the era of the comedian movie, where you don't go to see a quirky idea of an ensemble cast of comedians. You go to a Jim Carrey movie. You go to an Eddie Murphy movie. So I think it was just an era.
But Spinal Tap worked. Spinal Tap was a huge hit.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, that's the thing. You would think that it would have. I don't know if it was because Spinal Tap was it was tied to music and that made it work. But again, I
don't know. This movie needs to get turned up to 11 though.
It absolutely does. Let's turn it up to 11 and go into Lisies and Besties. Let's start with leasties. We're gonna have some fun in this one. Least likely to make it in showbiz. Least likely to make it in showbiz. Now, this could be controversial, but here's a few. Okay, we have Corky St, of course. We have Dr. Alan Pearl. We have Ron and Sheila Albertson, and then we have Libby Mae Brown. So, Mike, who do you think out of this group is least likely to make it in showbiz?
Well, I think it's Dr. Alan Pearl for me. That character is. It's hard to pick a favorite character, but his character was so good. That's for listeners. If you haven't watched it yet, what are you doing? But Eugene Levy's character, Dr. Alan Pearl, is perfect.
He plays it so goofy. It's so good. I actually say he might be very successful. I think he found a niche in Miami. I think if he waits long enough, he could start a YouTube channel and have this do this dentist bit. He could be like the entertainment dentist. I don't know. I think there's something there. I think the nursing home circuit would work out for him. I think he'd have a lot of gigs. I don't know if he's going to get paid a lot. I think Ron and Sheila, you kind of see in the epilogue, we're jumping to the end of the movie, but they eventually make it to Hollywood, quote unquote, but they're just extras in a commercial. I think they're going to make it though, because they have the gift of just like blind stupidity.
Yeah,
like they
fake it till you make it.
They truly believe in themselves, like to a fault. So I think they actually would make it. Libby Mae Brown, I'm a bit worried about. I think she had the talent. I think she just got stuck in Alabama. Maybe she's working for corporate Dairy Queen. She had some good ideas.
I thought she was good.
Libby Mae. Least realistic, but somehow perfect name for a character. This might be the Waiting for Guffman. Least realistic, but somehow perfect name for a character. Leasty moving forward.
This is a hard one.
There's a lot of good ones. So we've talked about the lineage of this movie and how it impacted the generation who made all of the shows that we love. Mike Schur, one of the creators of Parks and Rec, he talks about, not specifically this movie, but he talks about how much he loves names of characters and how he would spend hours and hours just putting in names in a basket and trying to think of the most interesting kind of titles. And part of that was, I found out, and I think he shared this on Amy Poehler's podcast, is that if you had an actual name of a person in a TV show, I think you had to do some sort of, you couldn't essentially use a real person's name as a character where you were filming, or it had something to do with SAG or something like that. So he like loved the competition of coming up with quirky names. Anyways, that's just a side story. But
he is addicted to names. He did a bit for the Dan Le Batard show where he read like thousands of 90s journeyman baseball player names and just recorded it and gave it to the Le Batard show, and they play it as a rejoin every now and then.
That's
of just
so
Mike Schur,
great.
like almost like you're open up the Calm app and an option is listen to Mike Schur read 90s journeyman baseball players.
That's so great. But here's some great names. Corky St. Clair, Dr. Alan Pearl already mentioned, Ron and Sheila Albertson already mentioned, Libby Mae Brown already mentioned, Clifford Woolley, Johnny and Red Savage, Gwen Fabian Blunt, and Blaine Fabian. All great names, just so special. They're just perfect. What's your like least realistic but somehow perfect name for one of the characters?
I mean, like, it's for me, it's got to be Corky St. Clair.
It's the best. It's the best. It wins every time.
Yeah, it's because I'm sure this is intentional, but like Corky sounds like quirky, and the whole character for him is quirky.
It's really interesting because my grandpa's nickname is Corky.
Oh,
but
yeah?
I've never heard really anybody ever use it. So this was the first time I've heard somebody use it. And it's Corky, but St. Clair as well. So there's like, part of me thinks that this was he made this name up, right? Like this is his stage name.
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah.
We could have had 3 movies of Corky St. Clair.
Yeah.
We could have had a spin-off
instead of like 15 Ernst movies, we could have had a few Corky St. Clair
movies. Well, that wins, but a lot of great names. I do love Alan Pearl for the dentist.
That is so good.
It's pretty spot on. And I also like a Blaine Fabin as the founder of Blaine. I just think that's great. And Gwen Fabin Blunt, his ancestor. It's such good names. All right, let's move on to besties. We've got some really good categories here. Some of the toughest besties we're ever going to have to decide on. Okay, best comedic cameo role. There are so many small little roles in this movie that stand out in big ways. So starting out with Gwen Fabin Blunt, the aforementioned, played by Deborah Thieker. That's the councilwoman and descendant of the town's founder. David Cross as the UFO nerd. I was jumping out of my seat when I saw him. And then just one scene, and that's it. William Murray, that's Bill Murray's brother, as Red Savage, Johnny Savage's dad. Phil Burgess as Don Lake, the town historian, as I mentioned in our ad. Steve Stark, played by Michael Hitchcock, the city councilman, fanboy of Corky, who, what a fun character. Mayor Glenn Welsh, played by Larry Miller, is the mayor, of course. And he's in a ton of stuff. Bob Balaban as the school conductor, and then Mrs. Pearl, Linda Cash. What's your best comedic cameo role out of all these amazing comics doing just the quirkiest characters?
Okay, so David Cross, because he's my favorite, just
Yes.
period. I adore David Cross. If you're Arrested Development fans, he's also in a show that kind of similar to this movie, never really got the attention it deserved. I don't know if you ever saw it, but it's called The Increasingly Poor Decisions of Todd Margaret.
No.
Yeah, it was produced by Will Arnett. And so like Will Arnett and David Cross are in this show, and I think it only got 1 or 2 seasons. And it's that's a different lit like indulgent lit episode for me.
He's in a ton of stuff, and this is right when he's really starting to make a name for himself. I think he in the Ben Stiller show. I feel like this is when he was. This was right about the time when him and Ben Stiller were collaborating on stuff, and his notoriety started to pop off in these small roles. But yeah, I think that wins for me. Obviously, I love William Murray showing up for fans of Groundhog's Day. He is in charge of the groundhog, and he's been a lot of other stuff. But I love seeing William Murray. I wish I actually could have seen a little bit more of him. But down the line, all of these performances were fantastic. Shout out to Linda Cash as Mrs. Pearl. She has some great lines and is perfect playing next to Eugene Levy. All right. I can't believe we're using this one so quickly after this bestie was created. The Get Your Head in the Game honorary best musical number. Wow.
I must have missed it.
Mike was like, what happened when I had a child? Yes, we did.
What happened while I was out?
Yes, we did a High School Musical rewatch for the 20th anniversary, Mike. I'm surprised you didn't tune in to that one. Listeners, if you haven't listened to it, that is a wild ride. So Get Your Head in the Game honorary bestie for best musical number. Okay, we have Covered Wagons, Open-Toed Shoes, Stool Boom, A Penny for Your Thoughts, which is, oh my gosh. When Corky has to really tag in for the musical because of the dropout. Nothing Ever Happens on Mars. And then I'll throw in a couple of the auditions, and then including the Teacher's Pet audition with Parker Posey. But do you have a favorite musical number?
I do not have a favorite, but here's something I want to kind of say about the movie as a whole. So the whole time you're watching the movie, I don't know, this isn't a spoiler, but it's kind of like an Easter egg. The whole time you're watching the movie, you get the impression like these guys have no idea what they're doing. This is going to be an absolute friggin' disaster. And then you get to the musical, and it's like the musical is better than the movie that the musical is in. Like
exactly.
The musical is actually super good, and the music is actually like great.
It's spot on. Like it is actually really good community theater.
Yes.
They play it so authentic. And I think that was the big surprise at the movie, outside of the laughs, was that it actually worked. Like it actually was a decent musical. And I think that's why if you watch Parks and Rec, I would say Parks and Rec over The Office, maybe later season of The Office, but I like Parks and Rec because there's a little bit more love in that show. They want the characters to succeed. That we laugh at them and they're really quirky, but we do in the end want them to succeed and pull it off. And that's what they do in Best of Show. Like they actually show them doing a decent musical for a community, like rural community. It's pretty amazing. The Penny for Your Thoughts
so good
is so good because you have Parker Posey and Christopher Guest, this is the layers of comedy. Christopher Guest is one, like he's doing a musical number as like the character in the musical, but he's playing Corky, who is elated but nervous, like because he just he's essentially filling in for the young hunk who is not allowed to be in the musical. So he's has all these emotions where he's last minute trying to fill this gap, but he's also loving being on stage, but he's a little nervous because Guffman's watching them, but he's also thriving, but it's also a character in the musical, like this World War I soldier character. It's
so good.
The layers that he's able to do in that scene are unbelievable. I
really like all of I actually really like all of the songs in the musical. Like, I was just kind of shocked that they spent enough time doing that. I guess when you don't write a real script and you just have a beat by beat, like this is what's going to happen, you have plenty of time to write the music. And then we didn't talk about, I don't know if you have it later on, but the music director.
Yes, Balaban.
Such a great straight man.
And there's a reason why he's in Wes Anderson movies in the next decade. In the 2000s, he starts being a part of the Wes Anderson players because his straight-laced, like almost into camera sternness is a perfect contrast to Corky's flair. It is the classic straight man performance where you don't get like he's not the villain, but he's a little bit, he's the enemy of Corky in some ways, and their debate is one of my favorite scenes, and we'll get into that later on. All right, let's move on to, I think might be our toughest.
This is the best picture category, right? Yeah,
of all time. It's the best line in this movie.
Yeah.
I don't know what to do. I don't know if I should read all these out, but I'm gonna pull out a few of my favorites based on the character. This whole movie is you can just rewatch it.
The joke writing. So many people in this movie just on their A game for whether it was improv or writing or whatever it was. Like so many good lines. I texted you as I was watching this. I'm like, we are gonna have a difficult time with the bestie for best line.
You're right. I'll just start and then we'll see what I missed. But for Corky, of course, our lead character, I'm gonna go home and I'm going to bite my pillow. Is what I'm gonna do. You're bastard people. That's what you are. Just bastard people. Well, then I hate you. I hate your ass face. And then this is, I was crying. Over here, we have some new lunchboxes that we've gotten in. The Remains of the Day lunchbox. And the kids, they're just having such a good time with these. You know, kids don't like eating lunch at school, but if they've got a Remains of the Day lunchbox, they're a whole lot happier. It's everything. That is Michael Scott. Like when you think about Michael Scott, when he is proud of something, but we're laughing at him, that's just, you're just copying that. It's there. Dr. Alan Pearl, one of my favorite ones here. I love to make people laugh, and I've been doing it since school. People ask me, were you the class clown? And I say, no, I wasn't. But I was signed the class clown, and I studied him.
I was laughing so hard when he said
that. And that's like in the first 5 minutes of the movie.
Yeah. And Eugene Levy is just so good. I have a feeling, I mean, like, look, I don't know how it actually went down, but I have a really good feeling that the way this line came out was nobody knew what he was going to say.
Yeah.
All just there. And he says that, and they probably have to reshoot that like
definitely. Times. I was probably just everyone's just dying on set.
And he probably is like, when everyone breaks or like laughs when he says it, he's probably like, oh, should I try some other stuff? Like, no, like,
don't. That's the line. We're if you can hear that, listeners, it's raining. There's a little thunderstorm coming.
Oh,
in
you
here
got it too.
Yeah, we got it too. So that's the ambiance here. All right, Libby Mae Brown, Parker Posey, who we didn't talk about. She is like labeled the indie queen, just in so many great indie movies. If you go through her IMDb, I'll always have a place at the DQ. The ending epilogue scene where she's like cooking one chicken leg on that grill it's remarkable. I think people are basically just people. Words to live by. That's just words to live by. Ron Albertson. Okay.
He had some good.
We're in a glamour profession. We're in a glamour profession being travel agents. I always have to tell her what impressions I'm doing. That honestly,
so good.
I'm not gonna lie. I thought about you and Shannon right away. I know, was like, actually, I thought that's exactly Shannon. I don't know why. And this might win it for me. We're considered bi-coastal if you if you include the Mississippi River, one of the coasts. The way he just says it, we're considered bi-coastal. As our queen, rest in peace, Sheila Albertson. I feel like I'm not just playing a character. I'm playing a woman who's playing a character who's also a stool. Do you think he'll like my hair? I've been training to go this way for weeks. Yeah, like talk about the hair that she has in this movie
is so crazy.
And then this is the good one. Corky, we love you. We want you to live.
She so Catherine O'Hara, I don't know, did you see Seth Rogen's like tribute to her at the Emmys?
The SAG Awards.
Oh, was it the SAG
or the Actor Awards now?
Yeah. So Catherine O'Hara won an award for her role in The Studio, which is just so good. Seth Rogen, who wrote and created the show, accepted it on her behalf, and he just gives like a very short 2-minute like acceptance speech, just kind of saying how awesome Catherine was to work with, and yada yada yada. And one of the things he says, he shares a little story about her. He said that because she's not in every episode, she's like in half the episodes,
right?
That every day that they were going to have a shooting day where she was going to be on set, the night before, he would get an email. He and the other writers would get an email from her with, it would say, "Hey, would you politely or kindly consider the following?" And then he's like, and then it would proceed to be a complete rewrite of the entire scene that she's in. And then he's like, and it was always better than what we had. And like, that's just her talent, right? So like, this movie is a perfect kind of movie for someone like her and someone like Eugene Levy and Christopher Guest, who are just so witty and off the cuff, and like, that's why we have so many good lines.
They just know their characters and they just see it. And that, I think that's just years of performing on stage. It's the Second City model. And just when you have that many reps as a comedic performer, you know what you want to do. And yeah, it makes sense. By the time she's doing The Studio, she's like, okay, I've been doing this. I know my character. Let me tell you how it's going to go down. You guys figure out the cameras and I'll let it shine.
Have you seen this is a bit of a digression, but this is kind of a Catherine O'Hara tribute, but have you seen the outtakes from the Home Alone scene where she's in the van with John Candy?
Yes, it's so good.
For viewers who don't know, John Candy, his character, he was the Polka King. The deal is John Candy, John Hughes, brilliant collaborators. John Candy's in a ton of John Hughes movies. And John Hughes really wanted John Candy to play this character, but John Candy had literally 10 hours to do the shoot. He had no time at all. But they basically put him and Catherine O'Hara next to each other for like 10 hours, and they're great friends. They go back to SCTV again, and there's a brilliant outtakes roll of everything that they got because they only had these 10 hours. They couldn't do reshoots or anything. So they just have all this stuff.
Get everything.
And John Candy and Catherine O'Hara are just perfect in it. It's just so good. I wish that was the
movie. Yeah. Again, it's like the Polka King. You wish you had 10 hours of the Polka King.
And that is by far my favorite part of that movie, by the way. It's incredible. Now this is a Home Alone podcast, but the John Candy's cameo in that movie is my favorite part of Home Alone.
It takes the movie from just like a great Christmas family movie to a timeless movie that is comedy gold and joyful to watch beyond the years and years to come.
Anyway, best line. Sorry.
Line. No, that's a good digression. I think this really is we're talking about waiting for Guffman, but it definitely is a Catherine O'Hara episode, and I think that's right as it should be. Steve Stark, played by Michael Hitchcock, who is the fanboy of Corky. He can act and he can sing and he can dance. There's only one other person in the world who can do all that, and that's Barbra Streisand. Still holds up. It's just, I love that we have the local fan that essentially sees Corky as Barbra Streisand.
You know who his character kind of reminds me of is Jim Carrey's cameo in The Office. The Finger Lakes guy. Now it's totally different, but like the cadence and the tone and everything.
And then we have Mrs. Pearl, as I mentioned, played by Linda Cash.
She's perfect.
I wonder if this is true of you guys. Now, we don't associate with the creative types. We have a Scrabble Cub. We associate with people with babies. Is that your life now?
Yeah, obviously. Sure. Oh man.
Oh, best line. Is it impossible? Is this impossible?
The whole movie is the
whole movie. And that's what I'm excited. I'm excited to rewatch this movie over and over again because I know there's lines that I missed because I was laughing at the previous line.
That's 100% true. You know, people talk about this with Arrested Development, that it's underappreciated because of its joke writing, and you only catch half the jokes, if that, watching it through the first time. And I gotta imagine this movie is the exact same, where the jokes are just so layered and deep and good that we're missing stuff. And these are not even all the best lines. I remember so many lines. It's
I know. So I wish I would have done a better job when I watched it and was like live texting you. I didn't put context for myself. I was just typing one words. So I need to do
the thing is, listener, if you've gotten to this point, congratulations, Mom. Thanks for listening.
Yeah,
you really just need to watch the movie. And if you have watched the movie and you're here with us, then you know. Then you know.
I want to say my gut reaction. Were you the class clown? No, I wasn't. But I sat beside. I think because that was so early.
Yes, it set the tone.
And I was like, oh boy, this is going to be absolutely. Yeah. Like you just start off so strong,
so good
that one stands, and then all the lines in the epilogue. But we'll get to that in best scene. Again, I think this is impossible. I guess the opening setup scene of all the characters, the auditions, the confrontation with the town council, bastard people, the argument with the music director is. I didn't do musical theater, but you believe the composer and the music director and the musical director definitely have had those arguments in community theater and have gotten that serious. That is just so well played. It was perfect. The troupe visiting Corky at his apartment, the dinner with the Albertsons, the awkward dinner, the actual musical, the whole musical, the epilogue. What's your like favorite scene that stands out for you?
So I texted you that to me there's one absolutely perfect scene in this movie, and that's dinner with the Albertsons.
Yes.
I just thought that was that actually I think is the exact same quality, and I mean it's the same gag too, but it's the dinner party.
It's the dinner party. Exactly. I was thinking the exact same thing. The dinner party at the office is just taking from that. It's just elevating that. We're like, let's make that dinner scene, the awkward, like everyone's been like a weird awkward dinner scene where you're hanging out maybe with coworkers or like people you don't know that well, and then somebody goes over the line or it's just awkward. That scene essentially stretched out for 35 minutes is the dinner party, which is, in my opinion, the best episode of The Office.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so
ever.
good. And that scene is so good. You know, I didn't even think about the musical, but the musical is a phenomenal scene as well, but for different reasons. I think it's just shocking that like it was good.
It's shocking that it was good. And then I do have to say the whole bit that they think Guffman's there and then and you kind of know it's coming. Now we know this format. I think maybe if I watched this for the first time in the 90s, but we know this format now. Again, all the bits and jokes used from this movie have been replayed in Parks and Rec and Office and Modern Family. But the idea that Guffman is not, he's some random guy who just fell upon and sat in that stage. But I knew the joke was coming. I was like, this is classic. They're super excited. They're like giving him all this credit. Like, oh, Mr. Guffman, Mr. Guffman.
Yeah.
And it's not Mr. Guffman. And the disappointment and disdain on the cast's faces because they think they're going to go to New York. They're like, this is going to Broadway after he says that. That's just like a nice tag on top of the musical that I just absolutely adore. For me, the epilogue is my favorite. I think to end the movie where we get to look into these characters' lives a couple months later and then to be all still so naive and naively like believing in the arts or musical theater or Dairy Queen, whatever it may be, is so heartwarming and encouraging and funny at the same time. It warms my heart. It just was like such a fun way to end it. And also I was like, I want more, which I think is probably the best and worst part of the movie is it's only like an hour and a half. All right, Mike, let's move on to ratings and meaning. What did you rate this on Letterboxd?
So again, my Letterboxd scores are pretty harsh. I gave it 3.5 stars.
4.5 for me. It's almost a perfect movie. It just, again, as I mentioned, I wanted more, but I'm also glad that it is only an hour and a half. And I'm not necessarily a huge musical fan, so like I don't necessarily like. I was like, this is good, but I don't necessarily want to watch an entire musical.
Yeah,
that was the only part where I was like, I don't know if I need to see the entire musical, but it was impressive.
Yeah, that was definitely a choice. But you know, and it's interesting, like the amount of footage they had, right? And what they edited it down to 90 minutes or so, even I think just under. And it's I think you have to give a lot of credit to Christopher Guest for that, because it would have been really easy when he knew how good this was when he was making it. It would have been really easy for him to just keep putting other good material in there. And less is more sometimes, unfortunately. Agreed. For us, you know. Because
not here at Lit though. I just want more. Not here at Lit. We really believe more is more. We like it when we're talking longer than the movie.
Oh yeah. I mean that you're in, you know what you're in for when you get you and
if you made it this far, you know what it's all about. All right, Mike, what does this movie mean to you? Now, this is the interesting one because a lot of times we're coming at this from a nostalgic lens where we're looking back of rewatching a movie or something like that. But what does this movie mean to you? What stands out to you? What on watching for this for the first time?
Yeah, this movie is kind of mixed into like a period of my life right now where I've just been like never endingly consuming Catherine O'Hara
and keeping a child alive
but like the content I'm consuming is mostly just stuff that she was in. So like this movie was cathartic for me. It was it just made me happy that I'm getting to, even though she's gone, like I'm getting to like appreciate her for the first time again. You know what I mean? Like I haven't seen this before. And there's other work of hers that I just haven't seen. So like it was like as I was watching this, I was also getting into the studio. So it was like I was getting some of her like mid 90s stuff, and I was getting some stuff that she just did.
Right.
And it was like, oh, this is really cool. Like she never stopped being just absolutely hilarious.
Yeah. I think it's an amazing legacy, and I think that's the good way to wrap up this episode. Is this movie is just a slice of a great career that ended too soon, but the beauty of these type of creative people who have brought so much joy to us, to their fans, to people who haven't found the Waiting for Guffmans that are Catherine O'Hara fans. We can always go back to it. We can always experience new works of theirs, and their legacy lives on. And I think this film is just one of many examples of why we love Catherine O'Hara and will love Catherine O'Hara, and that she meant a lot to us as fans of comedy, fans of movies, fans of TV shows, but fans of joy.
Yeah.
That's the most important thing. Like, if you want joy, watch this movie, watch Catherine O'Hara in it. And I think that's really what this movie means to me. Mike, thanks for coming back.
Yeah.
We're so glad to have you back. Hopefully we'll figure out the contract and make sure that's all signed, sealed, and delivered. And
it's all good.
Your lawyers
I sent it in.
Yeah. All the lawyers have vetted everything, that we're not breaching contracts. Friends, thank you for watching, listening, and we'll talk to you next time on Least Important Things.